Absurd situation we're in, where nothing that anyone does whilst being Muslim is any responsibility of Islam's. Yet anything anyone does whilst being a Christian or a Jew is responsibility of all Christians, all Jews. Let's make this as straightforward.
Hey guys, welcome back again. So today we're going to be diving into if you could only watch one video about Islam. So today we're going to be diving into the content of this video.
I imagine that if the motion we had here tonight was Christianity as a religion of peace, we get to the Q&A, perhaps even before, and somebody would say, if the other side were arguing for that, somebody would say, what about the Crusades? What about that? And then there'd be some other clever clogs who'd say, what about that Florida pastor the other week? That was a nasty business. That's Christianity for you. If we'd had tonight, Judaism is a religion of peace, the other side were trying to argue that. Sure as anything. There'd be people popping up in the hall tonight saying, oh, there's this bit in one of the Old Testament books, really, really bad. All sorts of massacres going on. Why don't you talk about that? There might even be people trying to say that, the argument that Judaism was a religion of peace couldn't be argued because people would say, look at what Israel is doing, and isn't that a direct response, and so on. So let's not have a debate about Islam and whether or not Islam is a religion of peace without talking about the facts to do with Islam. It's an absurd situation we're in, where nothing that anyone does whilst being Muslim is any responsibility of Islam's. Yet anything anyone does whilst being a Christian or a Jew is responsibility of all Christians, all Jews. Let's make this as straightforward as I can. Take the categorization that eminent scholars like Bernard Lewis, Ibn Waraq have made. Let's say Islam is a very, very complex thing. And the best way I can do this in the very short time I have is say you have three Islams. Islam 1, 2, and 3. Islam 1, the Quran and the life of Muhammad and the Hadith. Islam 2, the tradition of the Sharia. Islam 3, what Muslims do now. The first of those things, Islam, the Quran and so on, is bad. It is bad. There is a lot of violence in it. And what's worse, the peaceful verses are superseded by the violent verses. The violent verses also, sadly, are more numerous in number. Then you've got the life of Muhammad. Again, a bad man. A very bad man, it has to be said. Not a great role model, if you look at it. Takes child brides, abuses a small girl, multiple wives, himself a warrior, himself a war criminal, himself beheads Jews. This, I would have thought, would be a signal of not great peacefulness. Then you've got the tradition of the Sharia. Again, not great peacefulness. Still, no schools of Sharia that people in this hall would want to submit to. And thirdly, what Muslims do now. Thankfully, there is some hope in that one. Because most Muslims, thank goodness, I almost said thank God, but old habits die hard. Most Muslims don't do what those texts say.
Douglas Murray challenges the notion that Islam is a religion of peace by pointing to various passages in the Quran that seem to endorse violence and to the historical record of the life of Muhammad, who, according to some interpretations, led a life that included acts of war and conquest. Murray argues that to understand the role of Islam in contemporary conflicts and acts of terrorism, one must look critically at these aspects of Islamic history and scripture. For example, Murray often cites verses from the Quran, such as Surah 9:5, which says, "And when the sacred months have passed, then kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them, and besiege them, and sit in wait for them at every place of ambush." Critics of Islam argue that such passages have been used to justify violence by extremist groups. It's important to note that interpretations of these verses vary widely among Muslims, with many scholars and believers arguing that they are taken out of context and that the Quran overall advocates for peace. Additionally, Murray brings up the life of Muhammad, who led several military campaigns during his lifetime. According to historical sources, Muhammad participated in battles such as the Battle of Badr and the Battle of Uhud. Murray suggests that understanding Muhammad's role as a military leader is crucial when discussing the influence of Islam on its followers. This perspective isn't without its supporters and detractors. For instance, former Muslim Ayyan Hirsi Ali has echoed Murray's sentiments, arguing that Islam needs a reformation to address its more violent and intolerant aspects. On the other hand, Many Islamic scholars emphasize that the context of the times was very different and that these actions were in line with the norms of tribal warfare in the 7th century Arabian Peninsula. Statistics also provide a backdrop to these discussions. For example, a 2013 study by the Pew Research Center found that a significant minority of Muslims in several countries support the implementation of Sharia law, and in some cases, severe punishments for apostasy and blasphemy. While these views don't represent all Muslims, they do highlight a strain of thought within Islam that aligns with Murray's concerns. Moreover, critics like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson have pointed out that acknowledging these aspects of Islam isn't about fostering hatred or intolerance, but about fostering an honest dialogue about the challenges posed by radical interpretations of any religion. They argue that without such a dialogue, it's difficult to address the root causes of terrorism and extremism effectively.
Now look, I wish that Zebra and Majid were the spokespeople of Islam. It would be lovely, although in Majid's case it would have taken rather too long if everyone had to go for 14 years preaching the downfall of America and then said, no, not so much. But we are where we are. Anyhow, I wish they spoke for Islam. It would be great. But the fact is that tonight, the organisers of this debate asked a number of clerics. None of them would show. Specifically, they wouldn't show and debate against Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Myself, I don't think they cared. But no, it's very interesting that they will not debate. Time and again, the actual leaders of your religion will not debate this. And you're left with people like we have here. The reason why is, of course, is that the leaders of the religion show such terrible lessons. It is not a small thing. It's not as it were a detail. It's not like a wacky Florida pastor. That you've got the largest Sunni state of Saudi Arabia, the most important Sunni state in the world, the most extraordinary closed prison of a society. It's not a detail, it's not a one-off nut job. The Shiite Republic of Iran is what it is, led by the people it's led by. That is not an accident, it's not a detail. The thing that worries me is that although tonight we hear from the fellow panelists here about how Islam is a religion of peace, the fact is that the people who are making the decisions in the religion, the people who are preaching in the religion, the heads of that religion, people like Sheikh Qaradawi, who broadcasts anti-Semitic, the most appalling filth every week on the main networks, that is the faith that's speaking for you guys. I wish that, Zeba, you were on every week on Al Jazeera, but you're not. Qaradawi is. The problem is that Islam is an unstable component, as a religion, an unstable component. 1,000 years ago, the Mu'tazilites tried to reform the religion. They were wiped out. The fact is that Islam is many things, many, many things. But to say it's a religion of peace is nonsense. It's to ignore reality. It's to ignore very difficult but necessary facts, not paradigms, but facts. To say that Islam is a religion of peace is to say something based entirely on hope. It's to elevate a hope into truth. And I hope, as you all know, history teaches us that's a very bad thing to do. Thank you.
Douglas Murray's argument hinges on the influence of radical elements within Islam. He points out that extremist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, though representing a small fraction of the global Muslim population, have managed to shape the narrative and actions associated with Islam on the world stage. These groups not only perpetrate acts of terror, but also command significant media attention, often overshadowing the peaceful majority. This phenomenon skews public perception and makes the actions of a few appear representative of the whole. Supporting this, a report by the Global Terrorism Index 2020 highlights that Islamic extremist groups were responsible for a majority of terrorist attacks worldwide over the past 2 decades. This statistic underscores the reality that while most Muslims are not involved in terrorism, the minority that is involved wields significant influence and causes substantial harm. Moreover, influential radical clerics and leaders have platforms that reach millions. Figures like Anwar al-Awlaki, a radical cleric who was linked to numerous terrorist plots, had a substantial online presence that inspired many to join extremist causes. This highlights the point about the outsized influence of radical voices within Islam. Additionally, labeling Islam as a religion of peace without critical examination can be dangerous. This is like wishful thinking that ignores the historical and present realities of violence committed in the name of Islam. This can lead to complacency and a failure to address the root causes of radicalization and terrorism. Historical examples, such as the appeasement policies before World War II, I show that ignoring the potential for violence in favor of a hopeful narrative can lead to disastrous consequences. Douglas Murray's argument is not about demonizing Islam or Muslims, but about fostering an honest and critical dialogue about the religion's texts, history, and the influence of its radical elements. By doing so, he believes we can better understand and address the factors that lead to radicalization and violence.
Wow, that was actually a lot. So, but we're going to be actually looking at, we're going to be digesting this stage by stage. First of all, I don't know if most of you watched my last video on Douglas Murray, and we were talking about the types of Islam that they watch. So I actually thought then that there were just two, but from this statement, he mentioned that there are three. You understand? Which is those that follow the Quran, not follow the Quran. I don't know whether I put it correctly. The Quran, he mentioned the Quran, the Sharia law, and what Muslims do now. And I think in my last statement, I talked about, from my own perspective, like based on how I have gotten close to one or two Muslim friends, I've been able to detect, okay, this is a very good religion and everything like that. But then again, you come to the news. Now, sometimes it feels like all these are just um, maybe one evil propaganda trying to taint the religion of Islam. But then sometimes this is where I get confused because, like the last debate I watched, I think there was an imam there that was actually representing the Muslim community. And then he still mentioned this something about adultery, fornication, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, oh, so if that was what I got confused. I'm like, how can they be two? Like I even thought then that there was just two types of Muslims or Islam. I don't really know. So, but coming down to this right now, like I said before, right? Just knowing my friends, I think them, I would say them are kind of like what Muslims do now, and those ones, they are kind of like open to discussion, calm, very good in nature. I've hung around most of them, and I've actually enjoyed my time with them. But then this brings me back to one conversation I had with one of my I think someone I worked with a long time ago. So the conversation was this: we were talking about Islam. Actually, we were talking about Islam and Christianity. It was kind of like a very heated discussion, and then this was what he told me, which began to kind of like draw my interest to the Islam religion. So he said something. He was like, Islam is the only religion that is, that is not divided into section. Like there was a way he put it. I don't really know if I'm putting it correctly. It was like, like they are one in nature. Like they are one in nature. That there is no separation. Just the way we have in the Christendom, that we have the Catholics, we have the Pentecostal, we have the Anglican, am I correct? Yeah, Anglicans and everything like that. So he was trying to tell me that there was no separation like that in Islam, and I was like, wow, that was very intriguing. And then he went on to say that just though we have the King James, the NIV version, the Hebrew Bible, so on and so forth, that in Islam they just have one specific Quran, and that is what everyone uses. But now getting to know that there are actually three sections, it begins to wonder, how many things am I unaware of? That is the first question I have actually, because I feel like there are so many things that I am not yet aware of. And then coming back to something again, this is the first, I don't know what I would say is an advice or more like a suggestion of mine. The truth is this, right? I feel like the image of Islam painted to the world is the image of violence. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be actually saying that that people should dial down, because the funniest thing is this, right? The funniest thing is this: if you get to know your ordinary Muslim friend, you will get to love them. But then, what are the extremists doing, or are they trying to say that you are not meant to be friends with anyone that is not a Muslim? Because that is the point I get confused about. Like, it's like the whole agenda is you guys just want to be separate from everybody, which I found a bit disturbing, because Why would you guys want that? I feel like the collaboration of nation and everything will bring about prosperity of the world. You know, then again, like I said, I'm not here to paint anyone black or blue, but the truth is this: if you actually sit down and digress and actually, I'm sorry, not digress. If you sit down and digest most of the things that Douglas Murray is saying, we'll find out there are so many truths inside of it. There are so many truths inside of it because he said one statement. He was like, that we trying to paint Islam as a peaceful religion is like having hope, and I don't think it should be like that. I don't think it should be like that. Because if I can have friends that are very peaceful and are very good Muslims, I think that is the way every Muslim should be. That is my own opinion. I think that is the way every Muslim should actually be. I might be wrong, like there's a saying, you don't actually tell people what to believe in. You can only suggest. You can't dictate for anyone how to live their life. But the truth is this: if will I use the word 80% or 90% of Muslims actually behave like my friends, in which I know and I've seen their behavior, I've seen the way they act towards humanity, I've seen the way they act towards people and everything. If 80% of Muslims behave like them, believe me, the ideology that Islam is a religion of violence will change overnight. Overnight. I'm being frank. Let there be room for forgiveness. Let there be room for acceptance. Let there be room for change. And I believe it will go a long way in so many things. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. If there is room for change, if there is room for acceptance, if there is room for forgiveness, there will be harmony. There will be harmony. Any place you go and you don't feel rejected, any place you go and you don't feel rejected, you would like to bring people there. You would like to bring people, you like to tell people about it. Anywhere you go, you don't feel segregated, you don't feel separated, you don't feel targeted, or you don't feel like you are without an option. You would love to tell people about that thing or about that place. So I think there should be room for acceptance. There should be room for forgiveness, just like um, just like the third Muslim he mentioned. What Muslims do now, because I feel like those ones are true for me. I feel like those ones are the true Muslims. For me, I feel like if you ask me about Muslim religion, those are the people I'm going to be using as an example. My friends, the ones I talk to, the ones I interact with, the ones that tell me about kindness. And then there was something he mentioned. I nearly forgot about that. He said something, right? I keep hearing this debate, and I keep saying to myself that I'm going to look deep into this. Like there was a place he said the Prophet Muhammad waged war, also took in what do you call it, child wife and everything like that. And the funniest thing is this, right? I've been hearing that, but I've not actually confirmed it with my own eyes, and I've not actually had that discussion with my Muslim friends. So I'm going to actually be clarifying to before I speak on that, so I won't be speaking out of point or be speaking without verification of that fact. But I feel like if Douglas Murray is saying it, which means it is a fact to be supported. So I don't really understand the whole child marriage of a thing, because in my country right now, right, sometimes when I'm walking on the road and I see some, will I use the word kids? Yes, I see some children that I feel like they're underage, and I'm like, then someone will not tell me like, these kids are married, like they're married to this person. I'm like, married? They're just kids, they should be in school or something. That still baffles me. I still get very confused about that, because I'm very sure that at that age I would really want to be in school. I would really want to, pursue my goals and pursue my dreams. And I think we should practice what Muslims do now more than any other thing. That is my own opinion about this. You understand? So we should actually leave room for acceptance, leave room for change. And I believe that will not harm the world in any way. Thank you guys for sticking around to this part of this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this YouTube channel. Also, feel free to use our Buy Me Coffee link to make priority request on the next video let's see on our YouTube channel. See you guys on my next video. For now, remain blessed and bye.